Half-Life is one of those cult gaming phenomena that you really had to experience in its prime to truly understand. A masterpiece of storytelling, innovative gameplay, and a world built around a suffocating cosmic agenda that is so unique that fans are still theorizing even today. It was this bizarre world of interdimensional aliens, psychic abilities, cosmic totalitarian empires, and of course, mysterious bureaucrats that firmly placed Half-Life in the echelon of gaming legend. Half-Life, developed by the highly acclaimed studio Valve, is centered on the story of Gordon Freeman, an MIT-trained physicist employed in a secret research facility by the name of Black Mesa. After a critical failure in an experiment, an interdimensional portal is opened, permitting all manner of strange alien creatures to overrun the facility. Gordon is then forced to battle for survival using his wits and athleticism to bring an end to the invasion. Following the first game's overwhelmingly positive reception upon release, Half-Life 2 released shortly after, following the events of the original game. Now under the employ of the enigmatic G-Man, a time and space traveling whatever he is, Gordon is pushed into the center of a rebellion against the Combine, a regime that invaded Earth between the events of the first two games and conquered the planet in just 7 hours, hallmarked as the 7-Hour War. Highly acclaimed, Half-Life 2 then followed onto 2 subsequent episodes that continued the mainline narrative of the series, pushing Gordon and his close compatriot Alex further toward a satisfying conclusion to the story. So far be it from me to spoil the ending of episode 2, but let's just say it finished on quite the cliffhanger. While the games still hold up and are readily available on Steam for gamers to enjoy in the modern era, fans of the series are still holding on to this unfinished story that made it so popular in the first place. There's still a tenacious need for the living legend to continue its obscure story almost 20 years after it left gamers on the edge of their seats.
Was anything about when we'll see episode 3?
Do they keep you in a state of edging?
Released on the 10th of October 2007, the final moments of Half-Life Episode 2 were so embedded in the minds of the fanbase that an imminent Episode 3 was one of the most anticipated games of its era, and it was announced by Valve in May of 2006. Little did fans know they would be waiting for almost 2 decades with almost no news of Episode 3, or what became known as the infamous Half-Life 3. Between picket protests, a bizarre threat from a collective known as Operation Crowbar, several boycotts of Valve products, Gabe Newell stringing fans along for over a decade, and a whole host of false leaks, Half-Life 3 solidified itself as the white whale of gaming. Given the continuous high hopes dashed against each fake leak, fanbase became more jaded and fed up as time went on, cultivating itself as the well-known meme, "Nothing ever happens." Or does it?
Another year already. Good to see and hear from so many of you. May the next quarter century deliver as many unexpected surprises as did the millenniums first. And again, time is fluid, like music. See you in the new year.
If you're not someone familiar with Half-Life, that was Mike Shapiro, the voice actor for the mysterious G-Man, who posted this video to Twitter this year, accompanied by the hashtags Valve, Half-Life, G-Man 2025. Now, when I made a video claiming that a Bloodborne remake was gaming's biggest cope, I was completely inundated with comments claiming Half-Life 3 to be the undisputed king of gaming cope. And in all honesty, they were right. I must apologize. Half-Life 3 is gaming's actual biggest cope. I had never even considered making this video before because Half-Life 3 cope was so old that I figured everyone had forgotten and given up by now. But boy golly, I was wrong. The cope is most certainly alive. Half-Life 3 is already done? Source? TikTok. Here we see the full image teased in Mike Shapiro's G-Man tweet. Brace yourself for what comes next. OP shows these windows with the numbers 1, 9, and 7. The image is the cover art for Mike Shapiro's song Best Long Dog, which has exactly 197 seconds in it, or 3 minutes and 17 seconds. There's 197 days between the last 2 releases of Shapiro's last 2 songs. If we look at the 197th word in Best Long Dog, the word is half. The 197th day of 2025 is Wednesday, 16th of July, 2025, which is almost certainly the release date of Half-Life 3. Gold 197 is the stable gold isotope in the periodic table that does not have a half life. What does it mean when a game goes gold? It means that it has reached the point where it is finished and ready for release. S-tier schizo posting. We are so back, people. Plausible insanity. Ladies and gentlemen, the most sane Half-Life enjoyer. They used to send people to insane asylums for this shit. This reminds me of the Tupac is alive in Cuba because these numbers add up conspiracies back in the day, but I'm so here for it. Whether the creation of a long tormented mind or a shitpost for the entertainment of the Half-Life subreddit, what this post represents is the enduring passion for the series and spark of desperation to see this incredible franchise through to the end, even almost 2 decades down the track. Now, I'd wager that if you're watching this, then you'd have some awareness of Half-Life's towering legacy, but may not necessarily be intimately familiar with the franchise itself. In order to really feel the yearning that fans of the series have been suffering with for so long, we have to go back to the beginning, to the release of Half-Life 2 Episode 2 in 2007, where the conspiracy truly started. Half-Life Episode 2 was released on the 10th of October 2007 to glowing reviews, a fitting entry to an already spotless cast of games in the series. But it was over a year earlier, in May of 2006, that Valve released a statement claiming that Episode 3 would be released around Christmas of 2007, much to the surprise and delight of the Half-Life fanbase. This would be the first in a long line of vague statements from Valve with regards to the elusive Episode 3. Evidently, it didn't release in that window, with Episode 2 releasing only 2 months earlier. In fact, it wasn't until 2008 that the first pieces of concept art was shown of Episode 3, sparingly providing gamers with false hope that the game was coming. To top it all off, hints at an Episode 4 being in development were also dropped by Valve, a standalone spin-off from the primary storyline. This spin-off was later confirmed as Half-Life Episode 4 Ravenholm, or Return to Ravenholm. It was then subsequently and unceremoniously cancelled. Later in 2008, Valve announced the release of Left 4 Dead 2, which, to the enamored fanbase, their excitement dashed to the wind once again, was tantamount to a spit in the face. This resulted in the first of a string of boycotts over the coming years, this one centered on Left 4 Dead 2. In the following years, Valve continued to do an incredibly poor job managing the expectations of fans, and no one was more deserving of the criticism than Valve's president and co-founder, Gabe Newell.
The main thing that we're working on right now after we get the orange box out the door is going to be Episode 3.
We're going to be running this experiment on episodic content through Episode 3.
After orange box, we have to get Episode 3 out.
You're still even working on Half-Life 2 Episode 3.
I really don't have anything to say about Episode 3 right now. Half-Life 2 Episode 3, where is it? So we tend to view ourselves as subject to valid criticism on our ability to manage our schedules.
This flagrant mismanagement of players' expectations led to further action from the community in the coming years. On August 11th and 12th of 2011, a small group of protesters stood outside Valve's headquarters with picket signs, demanding information about Episode 3's release. Like a messiah tending to his flock, Gabe addressed them himself. To his credit, the protesters stated that he was actually very welcoming of them, taking them to lunch, giving them a tour of the studio, and then allowing them to test some games before sending them on their merry way. He declined throughout to comment on Half-Life Episode 3. In the following year, on January 5th, 2012, following even further vague marketing from Gabe, an anonymous individual started an initiative called Operation Crowbar. Their mission statement, making Valve talk, one crowbar at a time. The collective demanded that supporters protest with their wallets, but not by undertaking a traditional boycott. No, Valve were far too wealthy and profitable for that. They were proposing that fans purchase real physical crowbars on Amazon and send them to Valve Studios, and they wouldn't stop until Valve were up to their nipples in crowbars. This was a legitimate protest with a full mission patch and everything. All 20 people that participated were deadly serious. The public had the right to know. Needless to say, the protests really didn't hit the mark, but they wouldn't have to wait very long before answers of a different flavor were handed freely to the fanbase. Mark Laidlaw, the lead writer of the Half-Life series, resigned from Valve in 2016 and announced his retirement from writing for the video game medium. A year later, on August 25th, 2017, Laidlaw dropped the bomb on the community with a document known as Epistle 3. The document was a synopsis of the unreleased Episode 3, and while it disguised key character names with thinly veiled substitutes, it was reasonably obvious that the contents were some kind of draft script. To keep this video as spoiler-free as possible, I won't recount the synopsis, but encourage you to read it yourself if the interest motivates you. Laidlaw described Epistle 3 as a fanfic, poetically describing it as a gender-swapped snapshot of a dream he had many years ago. What Laidlaw and Valve didn't see coming as a consequence of this narrative revelation was the furious backlash that it inspired from the Half-Life community. Epistle 3 signaled to the fanbase that Half-Life was finished in the eyes of Valve and had been totally abandoned in its development. Almost immediately, Epistle 3 circulated the internet, sparking a raging wildfire of resentment towards Valve. In retribution, the community protested in the best way that they could imagine to hurt Valve financially: review bombing. Dota 2, one of Valve's most popular titles, especially in the competitive esports scene, was the target of over 7,000 negative reviews posted in just a few days. After the backlash, Laidlaw admitted fault and regretted his actions given the impact it had on his old friends and colleagues that still remained at Valve. On a positive note, the stoic resentment that came from the community resulted in a suite of incredible fan-made projects that are either universally celebrated or the foundation of community jokes. Remastering or remaking something so beloved is a borderline impossible task when fans of the series adore every detail of the work of art they love so much. And wouldn't you know it, many of these center around remasters or remakes of the mainline Half-Life games. Black Mesa, a self-described reimagining of Half-Life with a faithful yet reworked single-player campaign, was released on the 6th of March 2020 and has over 100,000 reviews, sitting at overwhelmingly positive across time. Entropy Zero, a fan-made project developed by Breadman, was released on October 10th, 2017 and tells the story of a stranded Metro cop in the unexplored region of City 10 and is free to play on Steam. More recently, projects continue to be in development from the community with hardware-focused enhancements like that of Half-Life 2 RTX by Orbifold Studios that shows off next-gen updates to the game's visuals and is expected to release in the near future, with a demo available now for you to enjoy. But none of these were able to achieve the heights of the community's magnum opus, Fake Factory's cinematic mod, which included much needed enhancements to the sexiness of NPCs and featured fully modeled versions of, well, just Alex, cervix and all. Yep, that's real. All these and many more projects were inspired by the fanbase's admiration of Half-Life's masterful storytelling and world building that conjured a deep desire to see the continuation of the game's applauded legacy. But these inspired creations weren't enough to assuage the fanbase from their need for a continuation of the true story's canon. It's worth noting that throughout all this controversy, leakers were continuously baiting fans with minor updates to the source code that listed things like new weapons such as an ice gun, we'll come back to that, combine enemies like advisors, and updates to the game's physics aligned with Valve's work on the Source 2 engine. There are so many of these stories that I'm excluding them, as the overwhelming majority were entirely baseless, except for one. In 2015, the source code leaked a mysterious project titled HLVR, which fans immediately speculated as a Half-Life entry in VR. As it turns out, this game went into full production in 2016 and was finally announced to the public on November 18th, 2019, which we now know was the widely admired Half-Life Alyx.
Alex Vance alone cannot prevent his fate. Close your eyes, honey!
It was less than a year later, on March 23, 2020, that Half-Life Alyx released as a launch title on Valve's newly minted Valve Index VR headset, released the prior year. Half-Life Alyx follows the story of Alex Vance, 5 years prior to the events of Half-Life 2, who embarks on an action-filled mission to infiltrate an enigmatic Combine prison that contains a mysterious inmate. Now, a quick spoiler warning here for those who haven't seen the ending of this game. Skip to this timestamp if you wish to avoid it. Upon entering the final moments of the game, Alex releases the prisoner from their cage, only to find that rather than Gordon Freeman, who she expected to find, the game's most infamous character, the ever-cryptic G-Man. As thanks for his release, the G-Man offers to nudge time in favor of Alex's needs. She first requests for the Combine to be removed from Earth, to which the G-Man states is far too big of a nudge. Instead, he offers something that she didn't know she needed. He alters future events and saves the life of Eli Vance, who was killed at the end of episode 2. He then replaces Gordon as his employee with Alex, now held in stasis in his place. In a post-credits scene, we once again take the role of Gordon Freeman for the first time in 13 years. Eli, furious with the G-Man, hands Gordon his famed crowbar and leaves us with one statement.
You got work to do.
This effectively retcons the ending of the mainline story, additionally meaning that Half-Life Alyx was canon for the continuation of Half-Life Episode 2. It also gave fans the clearest message they'd had in years that Half-Life wasn't just alive, the story was taking brave, new steps forward. The game was widely praised upon release, save for some criticisms of its difficulty. But most importantly, the game's ending drove the narrative, left from Episode 2, into a new era. Fans were once again brimming with life at the reanimation of their long-dead obsession. So where does that leave us in the present day? Aside from some minor leaks leading fans to believe an unannounced project called Citadel was a Half-Life project and was instead Valve's new IP Deadlock, there wasn't much movement until August of 2024. A voice actress called Natasha Chandel posted that she was working with Valve on a mysterious project called Project White Sands. Upon the popular games media finding this detail, the credential was almost immediately removed from her profile, spurning speculation from fans. The name White Sands is associated with a real missile base close to the original location of Black Mesa. Hence, fans speculated that a mature Half-Life project was in late development. Then the day finally came, the 20th anniversary of Half-Life 2, but with no announcements of a new game. However, Valve did release a documentary that for the first time went deep into the troubled development of the failed Episode 3 and Half-Life 3, which were reportedly in development in the 2013 to 2014 period. Remember that ice gun that was leaked in 2011? Well, as it turns out, this was a real leak that Valve showcased, including an innovative path-building capability for three-dimensional traversal, set on an icebreaker called the Borealis, the ship that was the originally desired destination referenced at the end of Episode 2. The next location, Gordon and Alex to continue their adventure. Then just days before the new year, a prominent community leaker called Gabe Follower published a video alleging that Valve had entered playtests for a new IP classified as HLX in the source code. Now, leakers are never truly a reliable source for information like this, no matter how correct their prophecies in the past may have been. But this proclamation fueled the fanbase's belief enough that Half-Life fever was once again in the air. Then, one final event in the present day brought Half-Life 3 Copium back on the menu.
See you in the new year.
So the culmination of all these recent mysterious events leaves fans with two potential options. Adopt the time-weary anthem of nothing ever happens, or give in just one last time to the hysteria. Bring back the old belief that this once dead franchise had a beating heart with more life to live. That Half-Life 3, all its false leaks, community outrage, breathtaking community projects, and fiercely loyal fanbase was finally going to be released from stasis, hibernating in a pocket dimension, biding its time to set time back on course for better or worse. But you see,
the right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.